What's going on, YouTube? Great Heights is coming. Let's get ready. Okay, so we just got the dates for the new Greatest Heights event. It's going to be April 4th through the 6th. This time it'll be for the Cav Defensive Penetration City Skin. I expect it to be very popular. Honestly, it'll probably be the second most popular Greatest Heights they've had, only behind, the Mage pirate ship we had a few months ago. Okay, so the first thing you got to ask in terms of Greatest Heights is a very simple question. Am I going to push this Greatest Heights event? No right or wrong answer there. Even a player like me doesn't push every one. In fact, I'll probably sit this one out. I'll talk about that later on. But if you're not going to push, hey, no big deal. Stay classy, Belron. See you next time. Okay, but the rest of this video, let's assume you are going to push for this event. What should you do? Well, the first question you got to ask yourself is how much power I'm going to push. The key thresholds here, 1 million power, you finish the quest. Not that difficult to do. You get some decent quest rewards like some gold heads. Not a big deal, right? Second key threshold, 5 million power. For every 5 million power, you get a little token for this event, and you can carry the tokens over. They do persist event to event, so you can get a token or two this event and save them up. Okay, so 5 million power, second key threshold. Third key threshold, 30 million power. This is really the key mark in the wall for most players. When I do Greatest Heights, that's what I'm aiming for, 30 million power. And why am I aiming for 30 million power? Because you get 6 tokens, and with 6 tokens, you can buy the Legendary City Skin, or you can buy like the throwback Legendary City Skin. Or alternatively, you can buy the adornment for your City Skin, which gives you an additional 3%. So you look at the pirate ship here, because I have the endowment, I don't get 10% bonus, I get a 13% bonus. Okay, so the ideal outcome really is you push 30 million power, you get the Legendary City Skin for finishing in the top 10, and then you use those 6 tokens either to buy the adornment for the City Skin or to buy like another City Skin like the throwback, or you save it to the next event, okay? So that's your last key threshold. Now, like I said, there's no right or wrong answer about how much power you're going to push. Maybe your answer is I'm going to push 30 million. Maybe I'm only going to push 1 million. Maybe your answer is I'm going to push whatever it takes. But whatever the answer is, just know how much you expect to push going in. Okay, once you've decided how much power you're going to push, the next thing you want to do is to prepare the battlefield to set yourself up for success as much as possible. Okay, 2 key things here. The first is you want to have as much T4 as possible. Now, the deal is, during the event, it is more efficient to upgrade T4 to T5 than it is to train fresh T5, right? Upgrading a T4 to T5 gives you more points per minute of speed up. It's also more points per unit of RSS than training the fresh T5. But of course, the deal is you can only upgrade T4 to T5 provided that you have the T4 to upgrade, right? So you take a look at your inventory. I have, let's say about 600,000 total T4 here. That's sort of the cap on the number of T4 I can upgrade to T5 during the event. You might ask, hey, could I just train T4 during the event and then upgrade them to T5? You could do that, but it's not an advantage. The advantage only comes when you're sort of slow cooking T4, like before the event. You essentially sort of bank a little time cooking them ahead of time, right? So you need a lot of T4 heading into the event. But the other thing you want to do is as soon as you're in range of the event, you want to start the big train off. Okay, what do I mean by that? Well, you can see here, if I train, some T4 1600 infantry, it'll take me about a day. If I train fresh T5, it'll take me about a day and a half. I want to point out here, these numbers are with no training speed buffs other than the inherent ones I have, right? I don't have a training runestone right now. I don't have the chief warder title. My kingdom has not lost the mass mobilization buff. So these numbers would be much smaller, much shorter if I had those buffs up. Okay. So what I do is when I get a little bit closer to the Greatest Heights event starting, I go into my, training speed here, and I want to add the largest reserve legion I can. The largest is 20,000. And with those 20,000 troops, now this train is going to take me about 20 and a half days or so. I'm still a little bit premature for that right now. And like I said, the other thing is with 20,000 reserve legions, it's 20 and a half days, but that's with no training speed buffs. This number is closer to 17 days when I have all the buffs up. And so it's still going to be a few days before I'm in range of the long train. And so right now, I don't want to use any reserve legions. I just want to train as much T4 as possible. Okay, a couple quick things about that. I showed you the 20,000 reserve legions. The only place to get that is the top of the VIP store here. You can see they're 2K gems a pop. Obviously, you can only do this if you're at the I think it's VIP 15, and maybe you don't want to spend the 2K gems. If you don't want to do that, or you can't use the 20,000 reserve legions, what you do is you use the largest reserve legions you have, which is probably 10,000. You can get those from Row. So probably you have a few of these laying around. The only thing to keep in mind is that means you'll start the long train closer to the event than like you could start with a 20,000 train. Okay. And when you're doing the long train up, you want to train T5, not T4. Okay, the other thing you might have noticed is that I have some long trains going up with my other factories here. You can see these will come due in about 13 and a half days. So what had happened was some misinformation got spread around. There was a rumor going around that Greatest Heights would start 28 March. I didn't put that out on my channel because I couldn't confirm it, and I don't want to spread misinformation. And it turns out it wasn't misinformation. Obviously, 28 March is about a week too early. And you'll see I started some long trains up. We had like the Alliance mobilization going for our Legion. We were doing Brink 4, and so we had all the training speed buffs anyway. And I figured, hey, why not be prepared? So I started these, 21,600 trains up. And what's going to happen is they're going to come due about a week before Greatest Heights starts. Okay, so if you're in the situation like I am, you have two options. Option one is you could just let these guys finish and not click on them until the start of Greatest Heights, okay? Because you get the points when you collect the troops, not when you finish the training. And so when these guys finish, a little icon will pop above them. Until I click on that icon, I don't collect the troops, I don't get the points. And so if I can just hold off on clicking them for about a week, this is not, I could get the points from these long trains for Greatest Heights. Okay, obviously there's two problems with that. First is whatever the delta is between when these guys finish and when you click on them, you're not training anything else, so you're missing out on some, account progression during that time. The second thing is, it's kind of hard not to click on them for that long of time. I have a bit of OCD. Whenever I see, a red thing pop up, I want to go click on it. And, I could probably put it off for a little while, but putting it off for a whole week, that's a big ask. Now, there is a couple things you can do to minimize the chance of yourself accidentally clicking on it. And honestly, the best thing to do is, if you're going to do that, take these factories and hide them far out of the way as you can, and put them all in the corner or something, and that'll make it less likely that you accidentally click on them. Okay. For me, however, I'm not going to do that. When these guys finish, I'm just going to collect the troops. Missing out a week of training, I think that's a pretty big downside. That's a week of account progression. I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to take the second option, which is basically collect these troops when they come due. At that point, since I'd have about a week left, I would start another long train if I was going to push in this Greatest Heights. It would be a little bit late, but at least I get a week essentially of free training before the event started. Sometimes people ask me, hey, couldn't I just speed up these trainings and collect them early and start another long train? You could do that. The problem is you're sort of robbing Peter to pay Paul. You need those speed ups during Greatest Heights, and so you're just spending them ahead of time. And then on top of that, if you do that when when you're not maxed out on training speed ups, it's very inefficient, right? So right now, like I said, I don't have a training rune, and I don't have the Chief Warder buff, etc. So doing it right now, that'd be a bad option. Okay, you've figured out how much power you want to push, and you've prepared the battlefield. You've gotten as much T4 as you can. You've started the long train ups. The next thing to do is to figure out how many training speeds you're going to need and how much resources you're going to need. Okay, thankfully we have a lot of good training calculators. The best one that I've found is the Call of Dragons database training calculator, and I'll put a link in the description below. Okay, so you go to this calculator or to another one like it, and here's what you do. The first thing you do is you figure out, okay, I'm going to upgrade T4 to T5. Each upgrade is going to give me 6 points. How much speed ups is that going to cost, right? Now the Call of Dragons training calculator here, it's set up to for multiple events. Right now you can see it's set to the Strongest Lord event. We're going to switch it to Great Heights. There's not really that big of a difference here, but just so there's no confusion. You saw I had about 600,000 T4 or so, just as a rough estimate. So let's see how many speed ups I would need to convert 600,000 T4 into 600,000 T5. Okay, something you want to be very careful of right here is to make sure you have the training speed correct. Okay, now 75% is the maximum training speed for most players. That assumes you have a level 5 training speed rune. That assumes you have the Chief Warder buff. It assumes you have the Mass Mobilization Kingdom buff going. However, there are some players who can get up to 78%, and those are the players that have the legendary city skin from the Row League, okay? If you finish in the top 4 of the Row League, you got this city skin, and it'll push you up to 78%. So if you're one of those lucky players, make sure you set the train speed correctly. Okay, but for most of us, it's at 75%. For me, it's at 75%. And I have 600,000 T4, so let's figure out how much it's going to take to upgrade those units. So you can see with just these things plugged in here, about 87 or 88 days, that translates into about 330,000 units. So let's see, about 150 days, a little low, 160 days. Okay, that's pretty close, right? So with 160 days of training speed ups, that'll convert 600,000 plus units into T5. That's worth this many points, right? Each conversion is worth 6 points in itself. And so I'll make a little note, hey, it's going to cost me 160 or so days of speed ups to convert my T4. Okay, now the resources, it depends on what units you're going to convert. Let's say I'm going to do all infantry. Let's just say that. These are the resources the conversion would cost. And if I'm going to do half cav, half flyers, it would cost this much, right? Just figure out what you're going to convert so you can get a good swag of how many resources, how many speed ups you need. Okay, at this point, it essentially becomes a math problem, right? I know with 100 days of speed ups, I can convert my T4s. It gets me, let's just say, 3.6 million points. I also know that I'm doing a long train on all my factories for 21,600 troops. That'll come due, basically when Great Heights starts if I prepared well. That's a little bit more than, 100,000. It's 108,000 troops. So let's round it up. Let's say 100,000 troops. 100,000 fresh T5 is 1 million points. So I'm at about, 4.6 million points, just as a rough estimate from my T4 conversions and also my long train. Well, I know I need 30 million points, right? So that's the scenario here. I'm going to get 4.6 million through my preparation of the battlefield as best I can. I need another 25.4 million points from fresh T5. Well, the math here is actually pretty easy because a fresh T5 troop gives you 10 points. So if I need 25.4 million points, I need 2.5 million troops. So how many speed ups is that going to cost? Let's do the calculator here. Yeah, it's about 2,000, right? So on top of the 160 days of speed ups I need for the conversion, I need 2,000 days for the fresh T5. So, 2,160 days of speed ups. And then I'll go over here and figure out, how many resources I need. Let's just say it's half infantry and half cav, more or less. I need these resources to train that many fresh T5. Okay, now back in my city, I know how many speed ups I need. I know how many resources I need. Can I figure out how much I have? Yeah, it's pretty easy. Go into your inventory here for resources. You click on the second button, click on resource statistics. It tells you how many resources you have. I have enough resources. Okay, how about speed ups? I go over speed ups here, same thing, click on speed ups. I only care about the top two. And you can see I have, around 1,300 days of speed ups. I know I need, 2,160. So I'm significantly short on speed ups here if I was going to push 30 million power. Okay, you have some time left between now and when Great Heights starts. So if you're short of resources, if you're short of speed ups, what do? Obviously for resources, get out there and collect those resources. No big surprise there. You also can have your farms support you with resources. But remember, there is a weekly limit to the amount that your farms can support you. You can also buy resources. Like I mentioned in the last video, you can buy resources from, the supply station here, but that's actually very inefficient. The much better way to buy resources is through the exchange store here. But remember, there's also a purchase limit to these per week. You have 3 weeks, essentially. So start getting these resources now if you're short. Okay, what about speed ups? If you're short speed ups, grab them from the VIP store. You can get them at a good discount there. You can get them from the Goblin Market if you're lucky, obviously. You can always buy speed ups from the store. You can buy as many of these as you want. The problem is none of these are at a discount. They're very expensive. This is very inefficient. The other thing you can do for speed ups is obviously you can buy bundles. Look, obviously that's a decision you're going to have to make for yourself, how much you want to invest in the Greatest Heights to buy speed ups. But after this, I will leave a list of the commonly available bundles in terms of their efficiency for speed ups. Essentially the best bang for your buck in terms of getting speed ups in preparation for Greatest Heights. All right, and that's really what I have for you in terms of preparing for Great Heights right now. Like I mentioned earlier, I don't think I'm going to be pushing this one. I had considered it. You can see I started these long train ups just to essentially give myself the option. But in between, like me missing the timing on the long train ups and the fact that I already have a Cav skin that's pretty good, and I did actually spend a good number of speed ups during the Brink of War event, I think I'm just going to sit this one out. But if you are pushing Great Heights, good luck to you. And that's all I got for today. And until next time, you stay classy, Belron.